Welcome to my channel and to my book summary. Don't forget to put a like if this is helpful to you. Summary of the book: The Art of Reading Minds, How to Understand and Influence Others Without Them Noticing. Author, Henrik Fexeus. Chapter 1: Understanding the Art of Mind Reading. In the course of communication, only 10% of the information we receive from words spoken by a person, while 90% depend on sign language and intonation of the voice. By developing attention to these expressions, we become able to read a person like an open book. At the moment, we usually focus only on words and overt gestures, such as clenched fists or furrowed eyebrows, missing out on pupil movements or changes in the other person's facial expression. Start communication by establishing rapport, which is a mirror image of physiology, as well as nonverbal and linguistic patterns. After establishing rapport, careful observation of the interlocutor will allow you to reveal his thoughts, worldview, and experiences. Chapter 2: Practical Application of Rapport. The first method is mirroring the movements of the interlocutor. Notice how his back holds up, his arms are folded, and so on. Then repeat his pose. If a person moves his hand, follow his movement. This can be done in two ways: by joining and mirroring. Joining involves using the same hand, for example, the right one, as the interlocutor. When mirroring, you react with the opposite side of your body. For example, if he moves with his right hand, you move with your left hand. It is important that it looks natural, otherwise it will be noticeable. At the beginning, you can partially repeat the movements of the interlocutor. For example, if he crossed his arms over his chest, you just cover your right hand with your left hand. Thus, the interlocutor will not notice your attempt to adjust to him. Or you can disguise your actions by slowing them down. Pause before repeating the actions of the interlocutor. Try to copy the other person's facial expression as well. Since he can't see what his face looks like, it's easier to do. The face reflects the thoughts and emotions of a person, and looking at your face, he will understand that you feel the same emotions. It is important to adjust your movements. For example, if a person slowly extends his hand to greet you, repeat his movement. Establishing rapport is an opportunity to influence a person and guide their behavior, adapting to you. For example, if you meet a friend and notice that he is in a depressed state, you can change his mood. First, adjust to his emotions, showing that you are on the same wavelength with him. Then gradually move on to more open and positive gestures and expressions. Straighten your back, move your arms, smile, and soon you will see that your friend is starting to follow your example. If you feel that the contact is lost, go back to the previous step and start over. It should be noted that rapport helps only in case of mild sadness. In case of depression, it is better not to use it. At first, establishing rapport may seem unnatural, but with practice it becomes automatic. To simplify the process, start establishing rapport when a person talks about themselves, not when you do it. In this case, the mirroring will be less noticeable, since the attention is focused on something else. For example, follow the lovers in the restaurant and you will notice that their movements are similar. This is because they naturally establish rapport with each other. In this state, people often understand each other instantly. Start practicing by repeating the movements of the talk show hosts on TV or establishing rapport from a distance, watching a person in the distance. In the process of communicating with a person, it is worth learning how to imitate his voice, tone, pitch, melody, speed, and volume. It is best to start by capturing the tempo, as this is a key element in establishing rapport. The tempo determines how fast we speak, reflecting the course of our thoughts. If you adjust to the pace of your interlocutor, it creates comfort in the conversation. For example, if you speak slowly, the other person may get bored. If you speak quickly, they may not have time to catch your thoughts. Also keep track of the use of slang to embed the appropriate words into the conversation. Over time, this will become a natural process. When you finish a phone conversation, people around you will be able to find out who you were talking to, because you have adapted your manner of communication to his style. One of the key rules for establishing rapport is the mastery of proper breathing. This skill takes time and practice, but it is absolutely masterable and extremely useful. Note how your interlocutor breathes, deeply or superficially, whether he uses the chest or diaphragm. Pay attention to the movement of the abdomen, chest, shoulders, and neck. By also analyzing your interlocutor's speech, you will be able to determine how often he takes breaths from pauses in the conversation. By adjusting to the rhythm of breathing, you automatically influence the rhythm of speech and movement, which helps to establish rapport. It is important to note that it is not necessary to reproduce each breath of the interlocutor. It is enough to try to breathe in his rhythm. Breathing can also betray a person's emotional state. For example, if he looks calm but breathes frequently, this may indicate that he is trying to hide his excitement. Go through the training, undress and hug each other, pressing your breasts. Then adjust to your partner's breathing and suddenly change the rhythm. If your partner's breathing also changes, it means that you have successfully synchronized. Another effective method of establishing rapport is to start a conversation with an agreement on some issue with your interlocutor. Find something in his statements that you can agree with, and then gradually implement your ideas. Keep in mind that if you start arguing right away, you may encounter strong resistance and rejection of your ideas. At the same time, it is important to remain honest in all your statements, without resorting to lies or abandoning your principles and views. The process of establishing rapport should be based on sincerity. Even if you disagree with the main idea of the interlocutor, find something that you can agree with at the level of abstraction. For example, if a person shows emotional outrage, you can react by imitating their body language, tone of voice and rhythm, saying, "Yes, I understand why you are outraged. It really causes disgust." Then, gradually lowering your voice, add, "However, I am sure we can find a solution to this situation together." This approach allows you to gradually guide the interlocutor to the right thought, ensuring a harmonious resolution of the conflict. In addition, it is a great way to calm down an angry interlocutor. In this case, you do not enter into a direct argument, but, on the contrary, support his emotions, which can help calm his anger. In order to convince people to accept your point of view, simply replace the conjunction, but, with and. The phrase that comes after the and is perceived as a natural continuation of the first statement. This technique can be used even in written communication. In this case, pay attention to the style of your interlocutor, whether he uses long or short sentences, whether he prefers large paragraphs or short phrases. Having identified his unique style, reflect it in your texts. To determine a person's interest in communicating with you, pay attention to their posture. If his feet and shoes are pointing away from you, this may signal his desire to leave. Otherwise, if the legs are directed towards you, and the person is tilted in your direction, this may indicate his interest. Also pay attention to his eyes. Dilated pupils may indicate interest. You can check this by starting a conversation on a mundane topic and noticing how the pupils will narrow. Then raise an important question, and maybe you'll notice their instant expansion. However, one should not imitate the gestures and words that a person uses when hating himself or trying to get rid of them. For example, avoid imitating lameness in front of a person suffering from this disease. Try not to copy the breathing of a person with asthma or avoid stuttering if this is your interlocutor's problem. Chapter 3: How Feelings Affect Our Thoughts. In psychology, there is a division of people into three main groups: visual people who prefer to process information visually, auditory people who prefer to assimilate information through hearing, and kinesthetics, for whom the sensations of the surface, temperature, or shape of objects are important. Depending on which of these feelings prevails, an individual perception of the world is formed. By analyzing which group our interlocutor belongs to, we can understand how he looks at the surrounding reality. Usually, people who tend to think in images look left up when they recall something from the past, and right up when they creatively generate new ideas. Remembering sounds, a person looks to the left, and creating new sounds, to the right. If he remembers physical sensations, his gaze is directed to the right down. When a person thinks to himself and solves logical problems, his eyes look down to the left. To practice establishing rapport, practice asking leading questions. For example, find out what movie a person watched yesterday, how his favorite song starts, how dirty socks smell, or what he thinks about life. Also pay attention to the vocabulary of the interlocutor. If he is visual, he will probably use words like saw, looked, show. Audio often has words like talk, listen, shout, and so on. Kinesthetics can use words like touch, feel, or squeeze. Digital people often use words like think, remember, or understand. Identifying a person's type will help you adjust to it using words from the same system. For example, you can discuss additional possibilities with a visual, listen to arguments with an auditory, and understand when it's time to complete a deal with a kinesthetic. Also pay attention to the pace of speech. The visual is fast, the kinesthetic is slow, and the auditory is somewhere in the middle. During the presentation, not only tell us about the product, but also illustrate your words with pictures. Distribute pamphlets or flyers so that people can hold them in their hands and better assimilate the information, thereby establishing rapport with everyone present. Chapter 4 discusses how to recognize conflicting signals to identify lies. Determining whether a person is lying requires careful observation of the signals on their face and gestures, as well as their correct interpretation. When studying various signs, it should be remembered that they are not an absolute guarantee of a lie, so it is important to take into account the context and avoid hasty conclusions. One of the signs of lying is pupil enlargement caused by nervousness. At the moment of deception, the frequency of blinking may be higher, and the eyes remain closed longer than those of an honest person, so the person tries to avoid direct gaze. The direction of the gaze can also give a hint. To the left, probably indicates memories, and to the right, about making up. It is important to note that if a person has thought out a false thought in advance, he can repeat it calmly, looking into your eyes. People who cheat often touch their face. If a person scratches his nose after saying words, adjusts his glasses, pulls on his earlobe or covers his mouth, he is probably lying. The tone of the voice also changes. It becomes thinner and louder, the speed of speech increases, and unreasonable pauses may occur, as a person seeks to gain time. A liar can also use long sentences to dominate the conversation and avoid interruptions. Some people, on the contrary, choose short statements. Repetition, avoiding direct answers, or beating around the bush may also indicate a lie. Typical phrases starting with, "You won't believe it, but," or, "I know it sounds incredible, but," are aimed at creating the appearance of authenticity. The use of parasitic words serves as a means of dragging out time. In general, radical changes in the interlocutor's speech can be a clear sign of deception. The 5th chapter discusses the methods of subtle manipulation. The simplest way to make a person think about something is to forbid him to think about it. Everyone knows the phrase, "Don't think about the pink elephant." Paradoxically, when we say, "Don't do something," we tend to do it. For example, when a parent tells a child, "Don't swing in a chair," we unconsciously push him to do this, because the image of a rocking chair appears in the child's head, and it becomes attractive. The same applies to the alcohol situation. When they ask, "Don't you drink anymore?" subconsciously there is a desire to take the bottle again. Instead of banning something, it's more effective to say exactly what you want. Thus, the probability of getting the desired result is much higher than when using prohibitions. The 6th chapter of the book is about evoking emotions through the use of anchors. An anchor is a connection between a certain stimulus and a certain emotional state. The author examines examples of anchoring in everyday life, where certain situations or things become associated with certain emotions. The author recommends using anchoring to evoke specific emotions in various situations. For example, to raise a person's mood, use an anchor, a certain word, image, smell, or taste. It can also be effective in sales, where you can create positive associations for the customer with your product. The book also suggests anchoring in various situations in order to evoke the desired emotions if necessary. At the end of the chapter, the author offers several tricks, including amazing questions, to check what exactly a person is paying attention to at a particular moment. This summary invites further reading, as the book contains many more practical examples and techniques for effectively using emotional manipulation in everyday life. Subscribe to the channel, give a like, hit the bell, and leave your opinion about this book in the comments.